Now we're going to go to some hot takes. And this week, what I really, really wanted to focus on was this article written by Kelsey Moser, as I mentioned, where she kind of put together a power rankings of the best players in each position at the World Championship. Now, I'm sure lots of people have done power rankings. I know a lot of people have probably, they might agree or disagree. But the reason I wanted to focus on Kelsey specifically is because I've worked with her in the past. I know how much she studies the game, and I have an insane amount of respect for her League of Legends brain. Like, she does so much research, she does so much studying, and I believe her to be one of the more intelligent minds in the Western world for the game, that I think that her opinions actually have quite a bit of credence. And she's very likely on the money with a lot of this. Now, I'll obviously, might have a couple of small disagreements with her here and there, but I think overall, this is going to be a really, really good list for you guys to pay attention to in terms of who you should be watching and why. So let's kick it off with support. The team's backbone, so to speak. And the names that she mentions are Royal Never Give Up's Ming, Hylissang from Fnatic, and then the last one she had as a toss-up was between Hylissang and Crisp. So those are kind of both very legitimate options. And then Mickey X for G2. So all of those very, very good players. I think, some North American fans specifically would want Core JJ on there representing Team Liquid. But I think those are definitely the supports that you have to watch out for because of what they do. So not only are these supports really, really good at, controlling lane and roaming at the right time and making sure their AD carry can get to that fed point, but they have diverse champion pools. They can play a lot of things. They're flexible. They can either play a defensive lane or an offensive lane. And I think what's really interesting, actually, is that I think we have some graphics on some of the pools of champions. Now, this is all based on, what do you call it? I guess just raw data from solo queue. So we'll have to put a big asterisk on some of these champions because, what gets used in solo queue, they're from Mobalytics, actually. What gets used in solo queue is not necessarily so for example, we have the support list up. You don't even see Yuumi. Yuumi is 100% one of the best supports in the game. You're going to see her. Even with the nerf store, you're going to see Yuumi. And you might actually see even from Fnatic, like that weird Yuumi Garen lane that they do. That would be honestly really interesting against somebody like Uzi, who loves standard lanes, loves to just be able to farm up and beat you. And if he's not able to do that, by playing this Yuumi Garen lane, then that throws a whole monkey wrench into the thing. But the sports brand makes a big, big impact in solo queue. I don't think we're going to see him very much in pro play. Again, a lot of people play him in solo queue because of how much damage you can do, and you kind of can act as a second mid laner if you're a really high-level support player and you're really, really confident in your ability in lane. But Nautilus, very, very common pick. What's interesting is that Janna and Nami have seemed to have been making a bit of a comeback. Not sure how much of them we'll see. I think you're still going to see a lot of Tahm Kench, weirdly, even though I don't think he's very good. I think a lot of people are very comfortable on him. He provides that comfort, and people know how to play with him and around him. He provides a nice frontline unit. He's able to help your AD carry or your mid or whoever gets caught out of that position by eating them and then spitting them out on the other side. So I think you're going to see a lot of playmakers. But ultimately, at the highest level of play, it's always been about tanks and supports. Alistar's not on this list, but you can be damn sure that we're going to see Zeyzal pulling out the Alistar if it doesn't get banned away from him. And it's kind of one of the interesting things about a world championship like this, where all the teams are so good. You know for a fact that these teams have all scouted each other. You know for a fact that these teams are looking into each other at a really deep level. And I think we've finally gotten to the point with League of Legends where, especially in the main portion of the tournament, maybe in play-ins it's a different story, but in the main portion of the event, there is a 0% chance that you can just count out your opponent and go, oh yeah, he plays Alistar, but it's not really, that's just a North America thing, or that, like TF mid for Fnatic, oh, that's just a, Europe thing. That is really, really dumb. If you do that this year and you lose, you're going to look so bad because all the regions have kind of caught up to each other and everybody has a lot of respect for each other. And I think you're going to see a lot of those bans directed and targeted at a specific individual who's known to be really, really good and comfortable on one champion, and they're maybe not quite as good on another champion. The problem is if you do that, then you're going to leave up some of the bans that are become meta through the World Championship and the picks that everybody thinks, well, you have to ban this guy because he's really, really strong. People like Ori, you like with Fnatic's case, if you ban the TF out, maybe you get that Yuumi, Yuumi Garen lane, and because Yuumi's been a auto ban all year in China, well now maybe that's how Fnatic beats Uzi, and is able to take him out on Royal. So a lot of things to consider here. Anyway, next we're gonna hop into the jungle and take a look at some of the best junglers that Kelsey Moser outlined for us. If you guys haven't read this article, you really need to. It's phenomenal. She outlines like why she thinks some of these junglers are the best. So the first is FunPlusPhoenix's Tian. Second is Jankos, and the third is Tarzan. All of these guys are really, really good, obviously. Tian has done a ton of work for FunPlusPhoenix, and a lot of people give him a lot of the credit for why they were able to win the LPL this year. Jankos has been considered one of the best junglers in the world for a long time now. I mean, ever since he came into the league, he was so aggressive. He did make such intelligent decisions, really can snowball lanes for you. And then Tarzan, I mentioned earlier on Griffin, he almost acts as like a third solo laner. Like he traditionally likes to farm a lot. Where I'm worried with Tarzan is that I feel like he relies on his laners being ahead. And he kind of goes, well, I don't have to put too much pressure on the map because my laners are all doing fine. So I can just kind of farm up and do my thing and kind of be wherever the game kind of dictates without too much worry. Whereas, at the World Championship, if Griffin, especially if they underperform a little bit and they need him to be more proactive, he could run into some problems where he's not necessarily might not perform the same way that he did. And I think you saw that in the SKT. Like even in that one clip that we showed, the team fight breakdown to start this, he was like 0-5. So that would not be good for him. That would not be good at all. I think there are a couple of other junglers that you could potentially bring up. Svenskeren, I think, was not mentioned, who I believe is definitely a jungler to look out for sure. Who else off the top of my head might be worth mentioning here? Also, yeah, Clid, actually. Clid from SKT. Fantastic jungler. He does an insane amount of work, and I think Kelsey did give him an honorable mention. Really, really, really strong player. He makes a huge impact for SKT, and his synergy with Faker cannot be underestimated. So I think that's another player for you to keep your eyes out on. Obviously, the jungle position is probably the most difficult to analyze, and she mentions this. A lot of it comes down to how your team is doing. Is your team doing really, really well? Well, then you can just farm up and, prioritize taking the neutral objectives and forcing fights because your team can win them because you're ahead. So, hey, let's just fight all the time. But when your team is behind and a little bit behind, that's when you really see the merit of a jungler because they have to be able to know what fights to pick and what fights to not, stay clear of and make sure that we don't get involved with this champion or that champion or make sure we don't take this 2-on-2 because it's going to go really, really badly. The other thing is that junglers have an essential role to play in the top lane and in the mid lane in allowing those players to back safely, controlling those waves. And if they synergize well with support, they can get really, really good roams going and do a lot of damage. So, ultimately, there's a lot of stuff the junglers are responsible for. And it can be really, really difficult sometimes to kind of gauge their strength. But I ultimately think that her list was pretty inclusive. And I think he did a pretty good job of hitting all the nails on the head in terms of that position. Next, let's pull up the jungle tier list, actually. So, the jungles that we see right now in solo queue, thank you to Mobalytics. Vi, Amumu, Volibear. Again, like you look at some of these junglers and you don't see them anywhere in pro play. Like the fact that Nunu's on there is hilarious. Echo jungle, maybe. He's gotten buffed a couple times, so we might see some teams. I would not be surprised at all to hear that teams are scrimming with him and trying to gauge his relative strength on 919. Whether he's going to make it into the World Championship, well, that depends on the results of those scrims. So it's hard to say. Vi has come and gone. She can be really, really good. She provides engage. She does damage. She's tanky. That could work out very nicely for a team that decides to pick her up. Amumu, good wave clear, but very, very poor dueling power, especially early. So if you see somebody like Lee Sin come into the meta, which with some of his buffs, some people are thinking that they're definitely going to be experimenting and scrimming with him as well. Hard to say. Again, though, Sejuani going to be there, 100%. You're going to see Skarner most likely still. Even though some teams have not been the greatest on him, you're going to see Skarner. Nocturne, most likely. as well has always been really, really strong because of his dueling potential, his ability to gank and kind of put pressure, similar to TF, where you can have that almost global ultimate. It has been nerfed over the years where it's not quite as ridiculous as it used to be, but you can still get places very, very quickly and cause mass confusion on the map. You can black out people's vision. It's a great way to start team fights. So wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple of Nocturne games either. Okay, now that we just finished talking about the jungle, let's talk about top, and we'll work our way down through the solo lanes. So, top laners. The Shy, Naguri, and Wunder. Now, what's interesting here is Naguri, if you notice, is on Damwon. So that just goes to show you how damn dangerous this team is. That according to Kelsey, who again is one of the best minds in all of League of Legends, they have one of the best top laners in the entire world on their team. Invictus, I know a lot of people have been a little bit hard on them, but I mean, you absolutely cannot count them out when you have somebody like the Shy and Rookie and Jackie Love. Like, it's such a good team. And these players, the way that they're, what's really important about top lane is not feeding, right? Because generally, there's always the meme that top lane's on an island. You're out there by yourself. So what do you have to do? Well, you have to not die. You can grab a solo kill, that's great, but it's not essential. What you have to do is be able to not die, not lose your CS advantage, and manage the wave. Because of how long top lane is and how exposed you are when you're farming at the opponent's turret instead of your own turret, what you'll notice a lot of the best top laners try and do is, shove a wave in, recall, knowing when to recall and being able to recall at the right time without having to blow your teleport to get back to lane, so that way you can use teleport to engage into a fight or on the bottom side of the map if necessary, or at a dragon or something. That's critical. Making sure that the opponent doesn't freeze the wave on you on their side of the map. So then that way you just sort of losing CS. They've got the wave frozen close to them. They don't have to worry about getting ganked. But if you want to do anything in terms of getting farm, you have to be very, very scared that you're going to get destroyed by a jungler to come in. Knowing when you might get turret dove, and having the presence of mind, not when it's going to happen, but 30 seconds to a minute before it's going to happen, to let your jungler know, hey, this is going to go bad. I think I'm going to get dove. I might get dove here in a minute. I need you to be topside. And being able to communicate that. So there's a lot of different things that top laners have to do to be self-sustaining and be efficient and to be rated as super highly amongst the top laners of the world. I think all those top laners were, solid picks. I think Khan on SKT is another really, really good top laner. Doesn't get enough love. He's really, really good at playing, some of those carry champs like Akali, which allows Faker to go on something like a Renekton and, just dominate the mid lane that way. Trying to think of anybody else that we might want to see in the top lane that could make a big, big impact. Impact actually from Team Liquid. He's very, very strong as well. That's somebody to keep an eye on for sure. But I think overall that pretty much sums up the top laners at the tournament and what they're capable of doing. Let's take a quick look at the top lane pool right now and see what's being played in the meta. So Garen. Funny thing about Garen is that he's got, I think, the least competitive games out of any champion ever. He is not liked, and it's just because of how basic his kit is. Maybe that'll change, but I highly doubt it. I don't think we're going to ever see Garen. Nasus, really good at farming, but also more of a solo queue champion. Jax, you can see some Jax. We have seen a lot of it historically. Recently, not as much, but maybe with this patch, we will see a bit more Jax. Teemo, not going to happen. Yorick, Urgot, not going to happen. Kayle has gotten some love. Maybe we see a little bit of Kayle in the top lane. Mordekaiser, not very good, in my opinion. I know a lot of people were super hyped on him after the rework, and he got a lot of love, and people were really playing him, but I think they've nerfed him enough now that he's just not a really, good or threatening champion. Kled, Aatrox, should still see a lot of them. Renekton, one of the safest top laners of all time, although he is very early game focused. I think you're going to see a lot of tanks or a lot of mages because of how much AD is being played in the middle. Shen, Irelia, Kled, Aatrox, like I mentioned, I don't think we're going to see. Vlad, potentially. Swain, potentially. Rumble, for sure. Like I mentioned last week, Rumble has that gigantic AoE zone ult. And, controlling the map at that highest level is so important and he's pretty strong in lane too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some Rumble. Shen, the ability to teleport everywhere, like, TF at the highest level, again, that has such a big impact. I can't stress that enough, guys, how much that map presence means to teams at this level and that level of control means. So any champion that can do both those things, Vlad, obviously with his ultimate and his pool, very similar in terms of being able to control an area. So I think both. I think all those champions are very, very viable choices. Mid lane now, everyone's favorite lane. You ever notice if you play League of Legends, it's impossible to get mid. You can queue up for mid, but you're just not going to get it. Everybody loves this lane. It wouldn't be a reliable list if Faker wasn't at the top. Now, Faker is not necessarily the ridiculously far ahead god that he used to be, but I think there's still a very strong argument to be made that he is the strongest player in the game. And when you look at it, it's not just his mechanical skill, but it's like what we started with this episode with. That presence of mind where he goes, no, don't go for Baron, win the game right now, right here. He is such an intelligent player. He knows how to do so much. His versatility and champion pool is basically unmatched. You can put that guy on any champion in the game and he will excel at it. It is absolutely ridiculous. Chovy, mid, really strong mid laner as well, representing Griffin. I think very, very difficult to say anything about that. And then Caps, on G2. There's a lot of players from G2 on this list, which, I don't know how familiar some of you guys are with Kelsey, but she was the biggest LPL fan. I mean, she started the LPL, she was one of the original people involved with making the LPL broadcast in English back when Riot didn't support that and didn't do it themselves. She's a huge LPL fan and has always thought Korea historically, she's evidence-based and has been able to see that Korea is so much better than the West. So for her to have G2 players in almost every position on this list, I think bodes actually really, really well for Western esports and Europe specifically. They might have a chance at winning this whole thing. Some other players that I think deserve honorable mentions. Jensen didn't have the greatest playoffs and has kind of been up and down, but he's always performed so well at Worlds. He's been the reason Cloud9 has been able to do so well when they need to at these World Championships. So, you have to give a shout out to Jensen. He's definitely somebody to keep an eye out for, and I think will be a big factor if Team Liquid makes it out and how they make it out. This is going to come down to Jensen. Fnatic has Nemesis. Now, he's one of the few people who's been playing TF all season long. So with some love to TF, and especially that AD TF, which is strange. But, that allows Bwipo to play an AP top, put him on the Rumble, put him on the Kennen or the Vlad or something like that. And all of a sudden, you have a team that, maybe you put that Garen, Yuumi bot lane that I was talking about down there for Rekkles and Hylissang, and all of a sudden you've got a really, really strange team for somebody like Royal to Never Give Up or SKT to deal with that they have never necessarily played against, and it could throw some monkey wrenches into that group stage. So just based on that alone, I think I'm going to give, and I think the fact that you're going to have to ban TF against Nemesis. I would not be surprised if you watch the games Fnatic plays in. Do not be surprised if we see TF get banned. Now, Fun plus Phoenix, interestingly, Doin B. Some people think this is the best player in the whole world right now. Apparently, he is absolutely ridiculous. I haven't watched an insane amount of LPL, but from the games that I have watched, he's been incredibly impressive. So that's somebody else to definitely keep an eye on. Let's take a look at this tier list for mid lane right now and see what champions are being played. Malzahar, now that's somebody I didn't think, I was kind of surprised when we're seeing more of. I think he is really strong right now, and we could definitely see him at Worlds. Some of the other champions on here, Ahri's popular and Fizz is popular in solo queue, but I just don't think this assassin style, other than Akali necessarily, is going to work that well. I think what you're really going to see a lot more of are the Oriannas, the Syndras. I'm surprised Vygar's not on here. That tells me people in solo queue are sleeping, because Vygar, with that ability to stun people more often, you get the max CDR. You're talking like 8 seconds, 7 seconds. That's an insanely often amount of time to be able to catch anybody who's being a little bit too greedy, a little bit too silly, a little bit too far forward, makes any sort of dumb play, and then Vygar with his damage, especially at this highest level, is going to be able to burst anybody down 100-0. So do not be surprised if you see that. Lux, very, very safe mid laner, and again, like at the World Championships, I can't stress this enough. The things that are prioritized are control and safety. You don't want to die, and you want to be able to control the map as well as you can. Lux provides both of those things. She has a really long-range ultimate, similar to Ezreal. She has, her E is a pretty big AoE. Her W, her shield, when, she's got a lot of AP on her, that's an insanely big shield. That makes it really, really easy for a lot of people to stay alive. So, and the Q snare, great engage if you can pick it off. Really good for invades at level 1 and making that early aggressive play. So that's another champion that you might see, funnily enough. Okay, ADC, last role. Let's take a look. Perks. Now, this is really interesting because I think, Perks, when I was mentioning earlier that you were going to, like, Syndra's been gaining popularity in the bottom lane, you have to remember Perks used to be a mid laner. So if this guy can come out and play Syndra bot lane, he's probably going to be the best at the entire World Championship at doing that in the AD carry lane. And that might just be something that all these teams don't know how to deal with. And then it might force a perma ban on Syndra against G2, which again will open up other picks for them. In terms of the other two AD carries, you were talking about who'd you have? JackeyLove, who I mentioned earlier, really, really fantastic player, really, really young. And that's going to be going head-to-head with Doublelift, so really, really difficult for anything to happen there for Team Liquid. That normal advantage that they're used to having with Doublelift being so much better than his opponent, I don't think that's going to be the case with Invictus. I think, JackeyLove is going to really prove to a lot of Western fans that he is the real deal. Teddy from SKT, one of the best AD carries, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, we started this episode off with him performing an incredible intellectual play, baiting out the Sejuani ult with the use of his QSS. And I think that, that level of, and you saw a CS there at that point too, it was like 430 at 33 minutes or something, just absolutely insane. Really, really strong AD carry, but there's so many of them. Viper, phenomenal ADC on Griffin. Don't think you can count him out by any stretch of the imagination. Doublelift, obviously, an incredible ADC. One of the best in the world, no doubt. So he's somebody you got to watch out for. And then Uzi on Royal Never Give Up. I mean, Uzi single-handedly has won games at the World Championships for his team when he's been playing. So, like, there are so many AD carries at this World Championship. There's like at least 6 that are what I would consider god-tier AD carries that I think the bot lane is going to be super, super fun to watch at this event. Now, in terms of what champions are we seeing? Who's going to get played? Well, Ezreal, 100% is going to be used just because of how good he is at staying alive. And again, what did I say? Control and safety. Ezreal, safe as it gets. Caitlyn, even though she's not super high on this list, very, very safe. And she's gotten some recent buffs. They were small, but I think they might have been big enough that you're going to see her get used. There's just very little doubt in my mind about that. Some of these other AD carries in terms of Jinx, Misfortune, you don't see them played as often, but it is possible. Kai'Sa obviously been huge in the meta. With Rakan being so big in support, you're also going to see some Xayah. That Xayah Rakan bot lane is very, very strong, and even if just taking Xayah on her own, she does a lot. Kai'Sa does a lot. This is a solo queue list, and it's not necessarily reflective of what we're seeing. Lucian's gotten some buffs, but it's tough for me to know whether he's going to actually come back into the meta or not. I mean, Lucian is kind of like Renekton in the sense that you're taking his early power to guarantee that you win early. If you don't, you lose. And I think that's not a gamble that a lot of the teams at the World Championship will necessarily want to take. So, I hope that kind of breaks things down for you guys. If you guys have some other champions that I missed in any of the positions that you think are going to be played, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to hear your arguments for why you think that they're going to be, played and what's going to make them so good at the World Championship. So, feel free to tweet that at myself at UGC Studios. I'm always down to engage in some discussion with fans on what we're going to see happen. And I think we're going to do a couple of interesting viewing party type things for World Championship as well. So stay tuned for that. Once I have some more information on it, I will let you guys know.